the Turnpike Commission to discuss preparations for the upcoming winter storm. As our teams here at the agency continue to work with our state agency and county partners to adjust plans for the event, we know that this storm has the potential to have major impacts across the Commonwealth, not just during the storm, but for days afterward, due to the Arctic cold that will set in and the dangerously low temperatures and wind chills. And I know a lot of people get focused on the amount of snow that we're going to get, but we focus more on what the impacts happen to be able to make sure that we're well prepared. Over the last couple of days, our teams have been coordinating with the various agencies, counties, and federal partners to ensure the Commonwealth is well prepared for the impacts. Just this morning, our teams met with Governor Shapiro to review the anticipated impacts and our collective readiness for this entire event. We have hosted calls with county emergency management offices to assess their preparedness and identify any gaps where they may require assistance throughout the storm. We have also coordinated with other state agencies to assess their readiness and ability to assist as needed. Yesterday, we activated our Commonwealth Response Coordination Center daylight hours for planning, resource coordination, and public messaging. And today, we will be finalizing the timing for a transition to 24/7 operations at the Commonwealth Response Coordination Center on Saturday or tomorrow for the duration of the storm and the continuing impacts in the following days. While no two storms are alike, we approach every winter storm with the same amount of concern for the safety of the residents of the Commonwealth and do everything in our power to minimize disruptions and provide assistance when and where needed in the most expedient manner. However, we can't do this alone. The public plays a significant role in preparedness activities. The sad fact is that despite our best attempts, this storm will most likely result in tragedy somewhere in the Commonwealth, whether it's a multi-vehicle accident while traveling during high-impact times on the roadways, accidental fires that occur from use of non-conventional heating sources, carbon monoxide poisoning from improper generator use during a power outage, or increased stress on heating systems that are not properly maintained, especially with the cold temperatures. The list goes on and on. While it's easy to become fatigued with the amount of messaging on these types of events, it's critical that the public do their part to be prepared not only for themselves and families, but also to assist neighbors in their communities during and after this impactful winter storm. Little things like families, once they dig out and assist their neighbors and check on family members and neighbors to make sure they're okay. It's like identifying your local fire hydrant and being able to dig it out so the fire companies have access to that if there's a fire in the community. I urge every Pennsylvanian to maintain their vigilance throughout the storm and the days that follow, monitor trusted media outlets for updates, and take appropriate steps to stay safe throughout the event. If anyone has questions on what to do or how to prepare for situations like we're about to face, we urge them to visit the ReadyPA website at ready.pa.gov. There, they will find information and helpful tips, including checklists for what to include in your home and emergency car kits and other helpful pieces of information. Now I'd like to turn the podium over to Secretary Mike Carroll from PennDOT to discuss their preparations.
Thanks, Director Padfield. I'm Mike Carroll, the PennDOT Secretary. I'd like to thank the other agencies here today for their collaboration and work as we head into this weekend. This weekend, we are expecting the most significant statewide winter storm in several years. And we are mobilizing our PennDOT teams around the state to respond. We are already pre-treating roads in anticipation of the storm, and we will be working around the clock to keep our roads safe and passable. However, we're expecting snow to be falling at rates of 1 to 2 inches per hour during the height of the storm, which poses the real challenge for our plowing operations. For us, rate of snowfall is as important as the amount of overall snow. Please remember that while snow is falling, roads will not be completely clear of snow and ice. Starting at midnight Saturday into Sunday, we will be implementing a Tier 4 vehicle restriction on the entire interstate network and on the Pennsylvania Turnpike and all of its extensions, along with other major roadways in Pennsylvania. And of course, a Tier 4 restriction means no commercial vehicles are permitted starting again Saturday night at midnight into Sunday. Additionally, all school buses, commercial buses, motor coaches, motorcycles, RVs, motorhomes and passenger vehicles that are towing trailers are not permitted on roadways while the Tier 4 restriction is in place. The decision to implement these restrictions was made with the intention of balancing safety for everyone on the roadway, including commercial drivers. And of course, we will remove the restrictions as soon as conditions warrant. Check 511pa.com for the latest on vehicle restrictions. Again, 511pa.com, a wonderful resource for information during the storm. PennDOT has more than 2,600 plow trucks and rented plow trucks, a full supply of salt, and well over 5,000 workers at our stockpiles across the state in every county ready to respond. And while our PennDOT teams are out in force working to keep roads safe and passable, it truly is critical that you all, the public, avoid travel as much as you can. My preference would be a Sunday stay-home day, watch the NFL games despite the fact that the Eagles and Steelers are not playing, probably a wise move. We always prioritize higher traffic roadways when we plow, and we make sure that we keep those roadways first, foremost safe and passable, and then proceed to the secondary and tertiary roads. We will move equipment before the storm to address specific regional needs, and as the storm unfolds, we'll direct resources, equipment, and manpower to meet specific needs in specific counties. And as I said, 511pa.com is a continuing resource for travel information. Again, if you have to go out, it'd be a smart thing to check PA, 511PA. When the storm leaves our Commonwealth, our mission will continue. As with every storm, we will continue to treat roadways throughout the storm and after the storm with blowing and drifting and other such needs. PennDOT's folks are ready to meet the challenge that's before us. We ask that you be our continued partner in keeping roadways safe, and the best way you can do that is to just stay home. If, and I hope it's not happening, but if you do drive, please be safe. Leave extra space, slow down, safety first for everyone on the roads. I'm thankful for the work that the PennDOT folks will do over the next few days. They're dedicated public servants. They work really hard to meet the needs of Pennsylvanians, and I'm proud of the work that they do. And I'm happy to turn the podium over now to my friend Mark Compton from the Turnpike.
Thank you, Secretary Carroll. You know, in our business, we're either planning for winter or we're in winter. And we are ready to put that plan in place starting this weekend. And a key part of that plan has been communication and coordination. And I can tell you, with the leadership of my colleagues behind me, the coordination and communication has been the best it's been in my career here at the Turnpike and with PennDOT. And a key part of that coordination does get to the restrictions that Secretary Carroll had spoken to. We ask you to please take those restrictions very, very seriously. Because with the different data points we have around weather, with the data points we have around where traffic is moving, we put those restrictions on and when they're needed. And as the Secretary said, we will pull them off when they are not needed. These restrictions aren't about the quality of the driver. These restrictions are about the amount of time it takes for us to clear an incident on one of these roadways. We ask you to please adhere to these restrictions. We understand this isn't going to be blizzard-like conditions. This is going to be blizzard conditions when you're talking about the amount of snowfall that's going to happen during the day Sunday. So we ask you please to adhere to these restrictions and know that your partners here will be ready, and we will be attacking the storm with all force. But we need you to do your part, and a key part of that is staying off the roads, especially whenever the restrictions are in place. If you do that, that'll enable our crews to get out there safer, to clear the road and get you back to moving commerce and yourselves in a quicker manner based on the fact that we were able to clear it quicker. So please do your part so we can do ours. Thank you very much. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you our partner with State Police, Colonel George Bivens.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us and raising awareness about this important safety message as we prepare for potentially hazardous winter conditions. The Pennsylvania State Police urges all drivers to use patience and caution when driving in winter weather. By all available forecasts, this is a significant winter storm and should be treated as such. If you don't need to be on the roads, please stay home. If travel is unavoidable, we ask that you be especially careful and keep these important traffic laws in mind. First, Slow down. Police can issue citations for driving too fast for conditions, even if you are traveling below the posted speed limit. Winter weather creates hazards that necessitate reduced speeds. Clear your vehicle. State law requires drivers to maintain a full, unobstructed view of the road. Snow and ice must be removed from the windshield and all windows. Police may issue a citation if your visibility is obstructed. Drivers must remove snow and ice from the hood, trunk, and roof of their vehicles. If the accumulated snow or ice poses a threat to people or property, you can receive a citation even if nothing falls from the vehicle. Please give emergency responders space. Pennsylvania's Move Over law requires drivers approaching an emergency response area to safely move one lane away. If merging is not possible, you must slow down. This includes areas where tow trucks are assisting disabled motorists. Also, please turn on your headlights. State law requires headlights to be on whenever windshield wipers are in use due to precipitation such as snow or sleet. If you are involved in a crash or slide off the road and become stuck, please remain in your vehicle. Do not stand outside of your car, on or near the roadway. In most situations, you will be safer inside your vehicle with your seatbelt fastened and your hazard lights activated. Adjust your driving conditions for winter, or driving technique rather, for winter conditions. Slow down, increase your following distance, and avoid sudden stops or sharp turns. Use extra caution on bridges and ramps, which freeze more quickly than other road surfaces. In heavy or blowing snow, use low beam headlights. Be aware of vehicle restrictions and reduce speed limits on the turnpike, interstates, and roadways. As this winter storm impacts the Commonwealth, our troopers stand ready to respond. The Pennsylvania State Police will have additional troopers available to handle emergencies as they develop. If you need assistance, call 911 and we'll get to you as quickly as possible. In summary, please be prepared, monitor changing weather conditions, and avoid unnecessary travel. Staying off the roads helps emergency responders and road crews do their jobs and keeps everyone safe. Your choices on the road can protect your life and the lives of others. At this time, we'll open it up to any questions that any of you may have.
Hey, Randy, what makes this storm particularly dangerous? I know we haven't had one like this in a while. What should people kind of be keeping in mind, given that there are some real dangers?
So as I indicated in my remarks, we look at the impacts, right? So we know there's going to be travel impacts. We know that there's potentially going to be critical infrastructure impacts after this. I think it's the combination of the snow, which is a lot more than we've seen in recent years, but also the extended duration cold. So the latest updates that we received is, at least a week where we're going to be kind of below freezing. So we see a lot of impacts from that, and we anticipate those. So loss of heating systems for congregate care facilities, or multi-family dwellings, those types of things. We see more water main breaks. We see increased residential structure fires, those types of things. So it's a combination of the snow. Obviously, we know what the impacts are going to be there, and we're committed, that's why we're activating the Commonwealth Response Coordination Center, to be able to shorten our reaction time to any needs that the counties may have or the communities may have, but also to share information. Secretary Carroll and Mark talked about the travel restrictions and bans. We meet every 2 hours or sooner to be able to review those, to see if we can lift those or to see how they're working. So we're really committed to that. But I think it's a combination of factors with this. It's snow that we haven't seen in a number of years to this degree, and it's also the extended cold that we're going to see.
You mentioned how each storm has its own attributes. I guess the last one analogous to this was December 2020. We got, 11 inches or so, and that one changed over to sleet also part of the way through. But then we didn't have the cold that you talked about, including in advance of this one. I'm just wondering whether it's you or Mike or Mark talk about sort of those very specific things about this storm, how that might change how you approach it compared to even another storm with this amount of snow.
Sure, I'll turn it over to Mark here, but we look at each storm differently, and there's a lot of information, a lot of data points that we take into consideration that we use to inform our decisions. And ultimately, the forecast is the forecast right up until the precipitation starts, and then we get into nowcasting. So we have a state meteorologist, we work with the National Weather Service offices, we have good weather data that comes in from the roadway weather information system that PennDOT has and the Turnpike has. We take a look at all those data points to kind of adjust what our plans happen to be. So we take a look again at the impacts in totality and then try to prepare for those, because in our business, we talk about, people talk about best practices. There's really no best practices, because if you change one of the variables, right, on the storm or something like that, that completely throws off what our plan should be. And that's why we make sure that we're flexible and can adjust on the fly. But Mark.
Just in terms of like the extreme cold, also in advance of this one, and then kind of the fluffy snow changing over to sleet, anything specific that
So we're in the process now of brining the roadways in anticipation of the storm. So that is already underway, and that will continue through today and into tomorrow. And the forecast doesn't call for ice, at least at this moment, which is really helpful for us. So a snow or snow sleet combination, there's not much of a nuanced difference there in terms of our response. So ice would be more problematic and raise more concerns, but I'd say we're prepared at this point.
Secretary, there's a lot of people who are going to hear this. They're going to say, I understand all of these warnings. I'm still going to drive down to the store to go get something to eat or get something to drink. What do you think you would say to people who maybe aren't taking this as seriously as they might?
I'd say that you're putting your life at risk and you're putting others' lives at risk, or you're putting your health at risk and you're putting the health of others at risk. Is it really worth it to go down to the corner store?
I realize there's a lot of nuance to this, but can you talk about sort of where PennDOT's responsibility ends and where the responsibility in terms of treating roadways and so forth? Essentially, somebody wakes up Monday and there's a road that's not plowed yet. Whose responsibility was that?
So, of course, there are city and township and borough roads in addition to the PennDOT's and the Turnpike's roadways, and the average person may not know the nuance of all of that. But I would offer that the partners that we have in local government do a good job. They will be put to the test, as we will be with this storm. But I have every confidence that they will do a good job. They're not going to have pristine, clear roads during the height of the storm. There's going to be snow on the roadways, on local roadways as well as PennDOT roadways. But they will work hard and they will do their best. And depending on the size of the township, a smaller township would have fewer resources than a city would. But our local partners do a good job.
And then does PEMA get involved? If there's somebody who, and our meteorologist tells us there's maybe a better than average chance with this one of people, being, especially if you're sort of off a tertiary road, of it taking some time. Does PEMA get involved if there's somebody in a bad situation, but off a road that would be sort of the responsibility of somebody?
The answer to that is it depends. So we're part of a tiered system, right? So every municipality in the Commonwealth has a municipal emergency management coordinator. We work with the counties, obviously, in the county emergency management offices, but we may get to a point where there's specialized resources that are needed. I can think of an event a number of years ago where there was somebody on the top of a mountain and they had called 911 and they didn't have the resources to get there. So that came to us and we work with the team to try to figure out what are the best resources, reach out, talk to the National Guard to see what they have, see what other state agencies have to be able to provide that resource, even taking a look at aviation resources, things like that. So it just depends. If it can be coordinated and handled at the local level or the county level, we may never get involved with that. But if it's beyond their capability, it will come to us. And then we'll work it with, a team of experts to be able to figure out what the courses of action happen to be and pick the best course of action.
We have some state governors that are kind of declaring already declaring emergency state wherever they're at. Maybe go into some of the choices for why Pennsylvania hasn't done that, but where we're kind of at in that.
Sure, that's a great question. So that has been something that we take a look at all throughout. We have our teams actually taking a look at that based on this morning's forecast. There'll be some more information coming out later today regarding that. But that's a tool that we have in our toolbox to be able to use it. And we usually wait to make that decision a little closer to the event to be able to refine the forecast. So we've been taking a look at the forecast for the last number of days and kind of refining our plans. And we're also taking a look at the authorities under a state proclamation and whether that would be beneficial to us. So that was a discussion with the governor this morning.
What would change if we did get a emergency declaration statewide? I guess what resources would that activate?
So that provides some additional authorities. Predominantly, it's funding to be able to support state agency response, right? So we have state agencies that are going to be involved in the response. We'll be activating the Commonwealth Response Coordination Center. We'll be bringing other state agency representatives in. So it would be anything that we would need to be able to respond to the storm. But it's also certain other authorities that the governor may have under the disaster proclamation. It just depends on what we would need. Some of the things on the transportation side, we take a look at hours of service waivers, those types of things that we may need for fuel delivery. So there's not one specific thing. You know, we take a look at what we need based on the impacts of the event.
How, have you heard from the federal government at all about this? Have they offered any resources or gotten involved?
We have actually. So we were on, in fact, right before I came down here, we're on a coordination call with the National Response Coordination Center and FEMA, and the FEMA regions were on it as well. We had a FEMA region coordination call earlier this morning, director's call. We had a call yesterday. I believe the DHS secretary did reach out to make contact with the governor as well. So the federal government has been, willing to be able to provide resources, anything that we need at this point in time. The one good thing about Pennsylvania and the Commonwealth is we're pretty robust when it comes to resources. We've seen winter weather before. We have good plans in place. Secretary Carroll alluded, a lot of really good people out there to be able to maintain the roads. But it doesn't mean it's going to, or that we're going to be able to keep it within our capabilities. If it does exceed our capabilities, we have a process in place to request assistance.
Back to Karen's question about sort of some of the differences between Pennsylvania and maybe other states. You know, Pennsylvania aims for safe and passable roads, and other states have clear road policies. Is there a practical difference between that in terms of how whether it's PennDOT or Turnpike or others approach?
I'll turn that over to our transportation partners.
I'll follow me then on this one. So it's worth reminding folks the PennDOT has 44,000 miles of roadway, so it's an impossible assignment for them to be bare and clear during the entire storm. So we have the 511 PA lets folks see where the plow trucks have been, how recently the road has been cleared. We do our level best to keep the roads passable, again, focusing on the interstate and the high volume roadways first, and then moving down from there. So it's, as I stated during the event, the rate of snowfall for us is the challenge. You know, a rate of an inch or more per hour presents a much more challenging environment for us than a rate of snow less than an inch an hour. So and so we reconcile the available resources we have with the network that we have, and that results in what I would consider to be a very responsible response to the storm. And I know the Turnpike is a different plan because they have different resources. Mark?
Yeah, I think as Randy stated, there has to be a different approach for each storm. And that's definitely the case with this, and that's why the coordination and the collaboration is so important. So what I mean by that is our materials that we would use, which is the same material as its salt, reacts differently at 2 degrees, at 12 degrees, at 30 degrees, at minus 12 degrees. So in that, sometimes there is reason to have a little bit of material down, and also a little bit to get traction. So at times, based on the temperatures, based on the blowing, based on if there's sleet, all that changes based on what we're seeing with the eyes and ears on the roadway. And the good news is, based on the investments that have been made, we now have more than ever eyes and ears on the roadway that tell us what the conditions are like out there.
I got a question for Commissioner Bivens and Randy. When you're talking about first responders showing up during these emergencies, because people have emergencies, things happen.
Yes.
Can you talk about just kind of the risk that they're also in, and why people may want to try to avoid unnecessary behavior that might end up putting
Right.
people at risk.
Well, certainly, some of the same risks that I talked about to the motoring public, if they venture out, are the risks that our troopers encounter when they're out. Those roads are just as bad for them to navigate, but it's part of their job. They'll do it, and they'll get there. They're going to have to take their time. We give them the best equipment that we can and prepare them to be able to respond. Again, every time someone calls, it puts someone else at risk. It goes back to our message and our request to just please stay home. We can mitigate that risk for everyone.
It ties up emergency resources, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So, the 911 centers, that's one of the data points we'll be monitoring is, call volume into the 911 centers. But if we can reduce risk to any first responders by not putting them in harm's way, especially on the roadway, we're going to try to do that. And that's part of the messaging here, that if we don't have to put them out, if you're driving a 60 or 80,000 pound piece of fire apparatus, obviously, there are challenges on snow-covered roads with that. So, if we can reduce the possibility of them having to go out, and, obviously they are going to have to go out during the storm, but as long as it's not something that could have been prevented, right? Just like my comments regarding, what we see, despite our best public messaging, we still have extremely tragic situations occur during these events. And that's the one thing that we try to focus on, is that we really want to try to prevent these. And part of that is preventing, or lowering risk to emergency responders. If they don't have to go out in these situations because people's cars spun off the road or something else happened or there's a vehicle accident, that reduces their risk.
We're encouraging people to just kind of like stay home on Sunday. Do we have an estimate right now for maybe like Monday, Tuesday, when those roads will probably be cleared up and safe to go out?
I think, and I don't want to speak on behalf of everybody up here, but I think a lot of that's going to be dependent on the amount of snow that we get, right? And how much mixing we see and those types of things. And that's why we take a look at real-time data all the time. And it's just not the data points that we're getting from the weather information system. It is when we look at, travel restrictions and bans, Pennsylvania State Police provides input from their troopers that are out on the street or on the roads. We get reports in from PennDOT and the Turnpike of what they're actually seeing to make sure that the weather data is matching up with what we're thinking is occurring out there. So like I said, we try to take as much data in as we can to make good informed decisions. I think a lot of that is going to depend on how the storm evolves.
What have you heard from the power companies? Because I know lines go down, service gets interrupted. If somebody's power goes out, the whole block goes out, the neighborhood goes out. How fast are power companies going to respond if PEMA gets involved when you've got a large number of people affected?
We can, again, it depends on the situation. So we have good connectivity through the electrical distribution companies with the PUC. So normally before these events, the PUC will work with their EDCs or electrical distribution companies to do what they believe is a projection on power outages. The good news with this storm, at least right now, is the winds won't be as severe as we've seen with other storms. So we think that there will be less potential for significant power outages. We're guessing there's still going to be, or anticipating there's still going to be localized power outages, but we track those and we track the power outage data. And then if we see situations, we can get on calls with the PUC, the providers, things like that, to kind of work through the problem set. If there's downed trees, if there's telecommunication wires involved, those types of things, and work that complex problem set to be able to get a resolve to that. But with this storm right now, we're going to see some moderate winds, but not to the degree that we have in the past. So I think we'll see less power outages, and we're hopeful that that is going to be the case.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you all.
All right, thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Randy, when you said listen to trusted media sources sitting next to Tom, I wanted to ask you who exactly you have in mind.
I'm going to defer that question. I'm not going to answer that.